Okay, we'll go a little further today in the Chumash class. We're learning about the tabernacle, how the Jews made this holy temple, portable holy temple. Mikdash, they made this holy temple that it could be disassembled and then reassembled in the desert, and they took this with them wherever they went. But it had to be made according to exact specifications, and these are the exact specifications. Well, we talked about it last time. The general form of how it looked, how the tabernacle looked, and that there was this sort of square, rectangular tent that was placed inside of a large yard. That the yard was defined by curtains that went all around it. The whole thing was open up to the sky. And this tent was also open to the sky, and it didn't have an official roof, but it was covered over by different types of skins of animals and cloth. Well, that's what we'll see now. So now God is telling Moses to make to bring, first of all, the ingredients. And then after that, the first thing Moses tells him to make, God tells Moses to make, is the ark. And that we'll learn also today. And if you remember, we learned yesterday from the Ramban, the reason that the ark is the first thing that God explains is because the ark is the most important detail of the tabernacle, because the ark was where God's presence, so to speak, rested, and God would speak to Moses from between these two statues that were on the top of the ark. And that we learned about that in the morning, what exactly these two statues were and how it represents the relationship between God and the Jewish people, and how God brings down the Torah to us, and how we elevate ourselves back to God by prayer and doing the commandments, etc. So let's go back briefly. This was the Ramban that we did. And again, God says to Moses, speak to the Jewish people, and they should take to me a donation from every person who has a generous heart. They should take my this donation. And this is what they should take: gold, silver, and copper. Now the Rebbe asks, remember this we learned in the morning, why does it say gold first? And we're in the middle of discussing this in the morning. Come in the morning and we'll see what this means. Gold, silver, techelet vargamon. These are two types of cloth. Rashi, let's look at Rashi here. Tzemer, this is, let's go over here. Wool, which is colored with the blood of a chalazon. A chalazon is some sort of a crustacean or a snail or something like that. And the color is yarok. It is green. Green in this case, it means like blue. It's the same thing, blue, green. It's a very big controversy today if we do have this color or not. According to the Arizal and most of the Hasidim today, we don't know what this worm is, so we don't have the color. But there are some that say that we do. There was the Rebbe of Rudzin, and he wrote a whole book about it. And it was very convincing what he writes in the book. But nevertheless, the other rabbis in Chabad also and they don't use this blue, because they say that it says in the writings of the Arizal that until the time of the Mashiach, until the time of the temple is built, that we won't be able to do it. So what they even though they found some sort of crustacean, this snail or whatever it is, that has exactly the qualities that they're looking for, but nevertheless, they say that it's just an imitation. It's not the real thing. In any case, that's what they had to bring, was this techelet, this wool, and it was colored with blue. And that's also with the tzitzit. The tzitzit, people who do believe that you should have, there's one strand or two strands that are colored blue. Argaman, this is another color of wool, and it's colored but with another color. With the name of it is argaman. Argaman is something like purple, I think. And sheish, that means pishtan. Sometimes the word sheish refers to also fine wool, but here it says sheish means silk, not pishtan, linen. And izim, it says you should take a sneeze of izim. What does it mean? Izim means goats. They would actually take goats. No, it said they would take just the fur of the goats, not the hide. They would shave the hair of the goats. That's called the notza of izim. Therefore, it says umazi, from the goats. Something comes from the goats and not the goats themselves. In other words, not the skin from the goats. All right. Orot elim madamim, the skins of elim. Now, elim are usually like rams, but they're painted red. Rashi says they're colored red after you tan the hides. But orot tchashim, and the skins of tchashim. Now, what are tchashim? Tchashim it says some sort of a weird animal that it was only in the time and when they were building this tabernacle. And it had a lot of colors on it. Therefore, in the Targum, the translation is, it says, sus gana. Sus gana means a lot of colors. Shasas, that a person is happy with the multitude of colors that it had. So some people translate it as some sort of a sea creature with a walrus, with a unicorn or whatever. Anyway, all those, according to Rashi, those are all inaccurate because it's some sort of an animal that has multicolored fur. Atse shitim. And you also had to bring in the shitim wood. Shitim wood. Where did you get the shitim wood? In the desert. There's no shitim wood growing in the desert. So Rabbi Tanchuma says that when Jacob went into Egypt with all of the 10 tribes, remember, Jacob went in to Egypt, there was only 70 people, Yaakov and all of his sons and his grandsons. So when they went in, it says that Yaakov, when he went into Egypt, remember they went down there, he didn't even know that Yosef was he hadn't seen Yosef yet, he just heard that Yosef was still alive, his son was still alive. So he went down and Tzafa, he saw Jacob, Yaakov, he saw Baruch HaKodesh with a prophetic spirit, Shatini Israel, that the Jewish people were going to get out of Egypt and they would build Mishkan, they would build a tabernacle in the desert. And therefore, when he went into Egypt, he brought cedar trees from Israel. That's where Yaakov was living, in Canaan. He went and he planted them in Egypt. And he commanded his sons, in other words, it was going to be like another, 300 years later, when they got out, Imayim to go to take them out, 210 years later, sorry. When they went out of Egypt. So he commanded that, but there's a very interesting Daat Zkainim. No. I made a mistake over here. No, it's Daat Zkainim. I made a mistake. Okay. It says, I'd say Shitim, Shin, Tet, Yud, Mem, Shitim. Shitim are the initials of Shalom, Tova, good, Yeshua, salvation, and Mechila, forgiveness. And in the desert, there were big forests that they took them from there. The Daat Zkainim, there's another opinion except for what Rashi said. Rashi said that they took them out of Egypt, that Jacob planted them. But he said no, that in the desert, the fact is there were big forests there in the desert. And they took these wood from there. And it was called Shittim. Now the word Shittim is a bit of a notorious word. It says, Vayeshev Yisrael B'Shittim. It says that in fact, the Jewish people, when they were traveling, one of the journeys was in a place called Shittim. It wasn't such a good place. This is where the Jews sinned with the daughters of Moab. Went crazy over there. Shitim also means to go crazy. Shtut. Also it says, Vayishlach Yeshua ben Nun min Hashitim. It says that Yeshua also sent spies from a place called Shittim. Why? Because of this river, because of this forest, that this was called Shittim. Not like what Rashi said. Again, Rashi says that they took these boards out of Egypt where Jacob planted them. And he said, no, there's another opinion. There were forests, and in these forests, God arranged that there would be growing these Shittim trees. That's what it says. It's Shita Hadas. It says it's a place of Shita and Hadas, a place of this, whatever it is, cedar wood and hyssop. Who ate kal? This is a very, very light wood, like balsam wood. What is balsam wood? Is light. There's another type of wood that's very light. Balsam is light, I think. Then there's also, I don't remember. Okay. Anyway, it's a very light type of wood, he says. It's light, and it's smooth. Potato shukol, how can you know that it's smooth and it's light? It's not heavy. Now, in another Rashi, you're going to see that he says that the boards were tremendously heavy. But he says that's again, no, they were very light. How do you know they were light? So because the tent of the meeting, that was in the middle. Let's see if we can find the picture. I want to find the picture 1 minute. Sorry. One second, I made a mistake. Here. Oh. Let's see, can we find that picture of, here's a picture of the ark. I wanted to show you, that's the picture of the ark. We'll come back to this. The poles were coming from the narrow side, by the way. We're going to learn this. It's quite amazing that all these people drew pictures of the different vessels. All they had to do was just look in the Chumash, and they would see that the poles were not coming from the side. They were coming from the short side. But all right, what can we do? See what they're putting on the long side? That's simply not the way it was. Okay, we had a picture. Remember, we had a picture of the ark. Where was it? Here, something. It looks something like this. Right here was the ark. Here was the. This was 100 amas, 100 amas, which means 150 feet by 50 amas. But the pictures are incredibly inaccurate. But anyway, this is at least a little bit sort of approaching. Let's see, do we have another picture here? All right. I don't know if these pictures, here it is, something like this. Is this showing up, by the way? Or maybe sometimes it doesn't show up. Here, let's do it like this. 1 second. I'm going to go back here. Oh. There we go. Now it's going to show up. Here we go. Here, this is something like the I would like to show it to you, but just the pictures are so tremendously, strangely inaccurate. I mean, if they're going to make a picture, so I mean, why not? Why make it up? Okay. Anyway, let's say it looks like this. There wasn't like a tent, but there was this big sort of outer court, which is 100. And this over here, this was called the oil moed here, like this. This was 100 amas by 50 amas. I'm sorry. This was 100 amas by 50 amas. And this central building that was here, this was 30 amas by 10 amas. And it was divided into 2 rooms. This back room was where the ark was. That was the Holy of Holies. That was 10 by 10. And this was 20 by 10. Right? So these boards, now he wants to prove, the Kli Yakar wants to prove that these boards were very light. How is he going to prove it? Here. I'm sorry, the Daat Zkainim. The Daat Zkainim wants to prove that it was very light. How do you know? It says because they were very, very light and they were smooth. You should know because there were 48 boards. There were 48 boards. They stood up, right? They were 10 amas high. were 10 amas high. There was, and each one of them was 1.5 amas wide. So there was 20 on each side. That was the 30 that I told you about. 20, and then there was 8 on the top side. So it says there were 48 of these boards altogether, and there were also sockets that they went into. That was 2 for each one, so it was twice as much, 96. And there were also etc. All of this. It says there were 8 oxes that dragged this whole entire thing. For Merari, he was the one that took all the boards, like we're going to say later on. And nevertheless, these crushing, they were 10 amas high. They were wide 1.5, and there was 48 of them. So you think it was so tremendously heavy? How could 8 oxes pull it? This is his proof. So it must be that the wood was very, very light, because they also had all these sockets made of silver to carry. This is like H, which is called, it's some sort of a wood which is called madra, I guess in Aramaic, whatever. Okay, but some people say, no, that these boards were boards that Yaakov planted when he went into Egypt. That's what Rashi said. When they took him out with them. And this is what it said, that there's a poem, a song, for Od, Ita, etc. There's a song that talks about this, how Jacob took the boards with him. For Od, Ita, it says in the Midrash, that the middle pillar was from the staff of Jacob. Like it says in Makliah went over the Jordan River, etc. So this is, let's go back to this picture again. Can we do the picture? I hope it'll come out. No, it's not coming out. Here. See here, if you look at this is made of, here, this is a picture of it. See, there were boards. Each one of these boards, there was 20 on this side, 20 on this side, and 8 over here. There were 10 amas high, I mean, it was 15 feet high, and each one was 1.5 amas by 1 amma. Each one of these boards. We'll get over to it a little bit later. But he says, according to that should be, they were very, they must have been very light, because he could carry all these in one. There's another place where it says they were so heavy that Moses couldn't lift them up on his own, and God had to help him. In any case, these boards were held together by posts. None of these pictures shows it. There was a long staff here. Quite astounding. Any case, here, if we could just get a picture. Here, see, these are the boards, and there was posts that went through. It says there was, if we could just get a picture of the ark here. Okay, we can't get a picture of the ark, but it says, how did these boards stand up? There were rings on every board. There were 2 rings, one here and one here. And also every board had a hole in the middle this way that ran all the way down. And those holes were exactly corresponding to one another. There was one long staff, one long bolt that was pushed in here, and it went all the way around here, around the corners, and it came all the way out. It says that was the staff of Jacob. Went all the way through. And all the others, there were rings. There was one staff that went up to the half, Another staff went up to the app. On the other side, one staff went to the app, another staff went to the app, and so was on the other side. And so, but the middle pillar, says this middle bolt, that was Jacob's staff that he took into Egypt, and it was a big miracle that it was used. The Jewish people took it out, and they used it as this middle staff for the. Okay, here's a sort of nice picture of the ark. See, that's the picture we had before. The staves are coming out the side, the narrow side. When the high priest went into the Holy of Holies, this is what he would see. He would see the ark like this, the ark facing the long side, with the poles coming out from the short sides. Here's this picture over here. Now this ark, which we're going to learn soon, really it was 3 boxes, one inside of the other. The inside box was gold. Then they put that inside a smaller box. They put it exactly, it fit into a middle box, which that was made of wood. And then those two, they fit exactly into an outside box that was made of gold. And in the end, it was coated with gold. So it was actually pretty heavy. All right, back to the text. Okay, shemen lama or, oil for the lamp, besamim, spices, l'shemen hamishcha, for the anointing oil, and also likatorat hasamim, for the incense that had to be made, the people had to bring. Now, interestingly enough, all these different types of spices, and we're going to see later the same question with the stones, they're not counted as separate entities. They're not counted as separate spices. There's 11 ingredients in the spices. They're not considered to be, they're not listed separately. It just says bring them, that's one thing. And also with the stones for the breastplate and for the shoulder, there's 2 stones, one on each shoulder of the high priest and 12 on the breastplate. It doesn't enumerate them either. It just says bring the stones, that's all. And we're going to see the Daat Zkainim. He's going to stand on that just one moment. Avnei shoim, avnei melim. That's the stones on the shoulders that hold up the apron of the high priest. And avnei melim. This is what we'll talk about more next week. Next week's Torah portion talks about the garments of the high priest. Okay, now you just have to keep remembering that this is God speaking over here. This is not Moses. Moses did not make this up. This is not a group of, Kabbalists that they came to some, mystical conclusions so the garments were made according to these spiritual visions that they had. No, this is God Himself is talking about how He has to be served. So this is pretty it is essential and deep to life. How Chassidut explains, but okay, here's the oil. The oil. Tema, big wonder. Shekola Parsha B'Tzorchi Binyan, that the whole entire Torah portion is talking about in the materials that were necessary to build this tabernacle, except for here. The oil. What's it talking about? The oil for the candelabra, and the spices for the anointing oil and for the incense. Now these things were not necessary in the actual building of the tabernacle. They were good for the service of the tabernacle, right? You had one of the things you had to use to serve. You had to light the lights. But it doesn't say you have to bring this here. He says he also doesn't say you have to bring the sacrifices. Right? Why does it say you have to bring this oil when it was only part of the service? It wasn't part of the actual building. That's the question that Daat Zkainim asks. Why? It says this whole entire Torah portion is talking about the ingredients necessary to build the temple, the tabernacle. And these things are only to how to serve God, right? And the things which are necessary to serve God, they don't list over here. For instance, it doesn't say that you have to bring wheat for the what's called the face bread. You don't have to bring sheep for the continual offering. You don't have to bring wood to burn on the altar. So why does it say you have to bring oil? Why does that one of the agreements? It has nothing to do with actual building of the temple. It deals with the service, and the things dealing with the service of God, they're not listed here. Maybe we could say no, that these three things are really, yes, necessary for the actual building. This oil for the land, for the menorah, for the fire, the spices for the oil of anointing, and the spices for the incense. This is part of the essential building. Why? Where do they use oil to build? Where? Why? So he says like this. We can see that these three things were necessary for the building. The oil of anointing, this was used to anoint all the vessels. You couldn't use them until you anointed them. What about the incense? The incense was to give the proper fragrance and ambience to the house, like a king. It says that they make the house, they put spices and perfumes in the house before the king comes there. How much more so in front of the King of Kings, of God? And also we find this that by means of the incense that the Shekhinah is found. Like it says, V'chiseh ana katoris. It says that in the cloud of incense that the Kohen lights in the Holy of Holies, as it says that God appears in this cloud of incense. And it also says, Ki be'anan era'el lakaporis. Same thing, it says in the cloud that God will appear. What about the oil for the candelabra, for the lamp in the holy temple, the seven branched lamp that was there? This is the way of kings. The king they have to light lights before them before they come into the house. Even though it says that the holy temple, that the lights that they lit there was not for illumination, because the house itself, it says it's shined out. Nevertheless, this is for the honor of God. So it's part of the actual building of the house, because the main thing of the house was to make God be revealed there. Okay, next, Avnei Shoem, the stones of the shoulder of the priest, and the Avnei Miluim, and the stones of the breastplate, and for the ephod, and the breastplate for the ephod. The ephod was like a sort of a strange garment that was put on the Kohen's chest, and the chushan was put on his chest, and the ephod was right below that. Right there. Okay, Rashi said, what do you have to bring? Just say bring all the stones. Why does it have to say bring the stones on the shoulders? And also the stones for the breastplate. Maybe I'll show you a picture over here. We have a little bit of time. So let's see if we can find this over here. Can we find the breastplate? The garments of the king. Strange pictures over here. I don't know. Here we go. No, do we have pictures of the Kohen Gadol? We'll see. Let's see. Let's go do a little searching over here. This is what I told you about before. I don't want to get out of this. Is 100 amas, the whole entire courtyard. And this was 10 by 30. And this was the inner sanctum where there was the Holy of Holies. That was 10 by 10. And this was 10 by 30. Okay, we talked about that. And then the altar, the outside altar. We did all this yesterday. But I'm having a bit of a problem finding the here. Here it is. Here it is. Here. Is this anything? 1 minute. No. Here it is. See, this is the Kohen. This is the high priest. And he had a breastplate over here with 12 stones in it. 3, 3, 3, 3, 4 rows of 3. And here, this was the Avnei Shoam. These were on the corners of his garment. Good, we found it. Very nice. I have this book. There's a lot of these books I have in my house and I can't find them. I have a suspicion. Okay. Let's go back to the Rashi. Avnei Shoam. So it says, for the ephod and the choshen, this is the Avnei Shoam for the ephod, and the miluim, this is for the choshen. This is the choshen mishpat that was, I just showed you, that was this little square on the Kohen's chest. There's bigger pictures we can find of it, but that'll suffice for us now. Let's just do the HaChaim here. And it says the HaChaim says that the Avnei Shoam and the Avnei Miluim, says the Rebbe, says the HaChaim, this is the HaChaim HaKadosh, Rabbi Chaim Ben Attar. And he said, let's understand what's going on over here. It says that there's 11 things that they have to be brought. And these were 2 more. Altogether, there was 13. So here we have Avnei Shoam, the 2 precious stones that were on the shoulders. And here we have the Avnei Miluim, 12 stones that were on the breastplate. So this is considered to be just 2 things. The Shoam is considered to be 1, even though there's 2 stones. And the Avnei Miluim, even though there's 12, it's also considered to be only 1. Says the HaChaim HaKadosh. Let's understand what's going on here. It says that there's 13 things altogether. This is 2 of them. The other 11 things, right, are put in a certain order: gold, silver. It should be that these precious stones should come before gold and silver, because these precious stones are more expensive. Maybe because we can say that when there was the inauguration of the tabernacle, that the leaders of the tribes, it says that they brought these things last. When they saw all the Jews brought everything that was necessary, so they brought all the stones. Maybe that's why it's that. And we find that it says that God didn't like that, and therefore there was even 1 letter that was missing from like it. But it says Hanasi'im, and it says that it's written without a yud. So therefore God put it in the end to show that it's the last thing that they brought, and he's just reminding of this bad thing. Okay, that's one reason why it's said at the last, because it should be in the beginning. It's the most expensive, right? To tell you that when they were bringing the offerings, that in fact the Nisim did bring this last of all. This last, okay, but that's sort of like a weak answer, because this is the commandment before they brought, right? Why put it last? In the commandment, they didn't do anything wrong yet. When did they do it wrong? When they were bringing it. So okay, later on. So that's one. Oh, here's another answer. It says in the Talmud in Yoma that the garment of the Kohanim, it was permissible to use them, and so therefore, ein moalim bem, if you misuse the garments of the Kohanim, you don't have to. There's no penalty. The mi'ila, there's no penalty. And also, I saw the Rambam that he also writes the same thing, Maimonides. So according to this, so the garments of the Kohen, even though that they're precious as far as money goes, but they're not as holy as the other vessels of the temple. And so therefore they're put last in the end because they were as permissible to use them. Okay, that's good enough for that. Make me a holy temple, and I will dwell inside of them. Why does it say inside of it? It means because of inside of each and every person. For the rest of it says the Or HaChaim. It doesn't say I will live inside of it. Lo amar bitocho. To tell you that what shamakom asher yakdishu, that any place that you make sanctify for God's dwelling, it will be in the Jewish people. And that it says that the Mishkan really was spread out in the four camps of the Jewish people. The Jewish people, when they traveled in the desert, so the Mishkan was, let's say, in the middle when they were traveling. There's different opinions exactly how it was. But all the 12 tribes, they traveled in what was called camps. There were 3 tribes in each camp. Right? There was each tribe, there was the camp of Yehuda, and the tribe of Reuven, the tribe of Dan, that was the last, and the tribe of Yisachar, right? Those were the 4 tribes who were traveling in the desert. So it says that they were on the 4 directions. That was one of the tabernacle touched on all 4 of them, on all 4 of these camps. So this is what they said, why the Jewish people, when they saw Mount Sinai, that they camped around Mount Sinai according to these camps that they had. And also according to the different camps of the angels. Michael says on the right and Gabriel is on the left. This is a sign, and therefore they desired that also God should be among them, just like the angels were. And that was the shechah. That's what it means. God said, I will dwell within them. I will dwell in the middle of the Jewish people. Everything that I showed you, the form of the Mishkan and the form of all the vessels, and so you should do. Rashi said, and this sentence is connected to what it said before. Asali Mikdash, make me a holy place, and I will dwell within them. And this here it says, and the Jewish people did whatever God said is connected to what it said before. Asali Mikdash, you should make me a holy place, just like I showed to you, and this is what they did. What does it mean that they did? Not only now, ta'asu, this is also for the future. And so also they will do. Right? You will do for all of the generations. In other words, the first temple and the second temple are in the same format as the tabernacle is, with the big altar outside and the ark and the holy of holies with the menorah and etc. And it also tells you that if you lose or is missing one of these the vessels of the holy temple, or in the future, when they make the vessels for the temple in Jerusalem, could go on like the tables and the menorah and the bowls, the thing that they wash their hands from, and all these different things that King Solomon made, that you should make them according to this general pattern. If it wasn't connected to what it said before, that the Jews did everything, that everything that I told you to do, you will do. Right? So it says, you should make me a holy temple, just like I showed you, you will do. In other words, even in the future generations. Therefore, lo ayalo lichtov v'kein tasu, ela kein. It shouldn't be kein tasu. It says v'kein to, and they did it. It should just be kein tasu, that they did what God said in the past. But then it says vikain, and it means it's talking about then it's talking about making in the future generations as well. So it's not just telling you that the Jewish people did what God said back here. It's telling you that the Jewish people will do what God said. In the future 2 temples, that it'll be built on the same principles, the same vessels, in the same general form as it was in the tabernacle. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow, 8:15. Hope to see you all.